Hello, my relatives. Joining us on today's podcast, we have Dallas Pootlass, an Indigenous leader from the lands that are known today as Bella Coola. Dallas runs an organization called Indigenous Empowerment Coaching, which helps other Indigenous organizations really thrive. We cover a wide variety of topics on this podcast: travel, accountability, and there's a lot of great career advice in this one. So I really recommend listening to the whole thing all the way through. But without further ado, please welcome Dallas Pootlass.
Yos, Madame Hooks. Hello, friends. My name is Dallas Pootlass, and I'm the owner of Indigenous Empowerment Coaching. So I have 4 containers that I offer to Indigenous organizations. So it's by Indigenous for Indigenous organizations. And I help organizations to create proactivity among their staff so that they can do the work and serve their clients in the best way possible. And it's only available through IEC.
Hello, my relatives. How are you? Here at Our Storytellers, we care about your spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical well-being, which is why we want to inform you that this podcast discusses topics that may cause trauma to listeners and viewers. These subjects include mentions of Indian residential schools, assimilation, ongoing harm, colonial impacts, and much more. Our Storytellers recognizes the need to minimize the risks associated with traumatic subject matter. The Hope for Wellness helpline offers immediate help to all Indigenous people across Canada. It is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to offer immediate support and crisis intervention. Services are available in English and French, and in Nehiyaw, Anishinaabe and Inuktitut upon request. If you or someone you know are experiencing any harm, no matter how big or small it's perceived to be, you can call the toll-free helpline at 1-855-242-3310 or connect to the online chat at www.hopeforwellness.ca. Kinanaskaman, I'm grateful for you. Your ancestors are always with you. All my relations, Riel. Dallas, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I'm entering into host mode now.
Yep.
So thank you so much for coming on.
Of course.
It's a privilege.
It's my pleasure.
I'm honored to have you here. Before we start any podcast, we always started by offering traditional protocol. I also have a blanket for you over here, but I want to give you this pouch of tobacco as a thank and an ask for coming on the podcast. So that's yours to take home. We just don't pass over the blanket because it's in plastic. It's a little bit crunchy.
Okay. Yeah, I got
so
it.
Otherwise, that's...
Oh, I see it. That's great.
But, I mean, share a little bit about who you are and take a moment to introduce yourself. Anything you want to say?
Oh, my name is Dallas Pootlass. I'm from Bella Coola. I grew up in the Central Coast, so the Great Bear Rainforest. And what do I need to say about that? My dad is Neo-Colonialism, and my mom is Kwakwakiwak. So they from Turner Island. So I'm really proud to be BC born and raised, and I've been living in Vancouver since before you were born, 1993. And when I finished high school, I came right from the res to East Vancouver to live. So
interesting. Well, what was your upbringing like?
It was, looking back, it was I grew up in a really political family. So my dad was he worked at the Union of BC Indian Chiefs when he was really young, and we were always on these I don't know, like we were always going out and protesting things, and really just like I was a part of the Indian Child Caravan. I was there when my dad and his colleagues and George Manuel, they were preparing for the to get Section 35 put into the Constitution. And I had no idea. So, I grew up on the reserve. So it was actually we grew up really poor, and when I was really young. And, but my parents started to get more and more success as we got older, and we eventually moved into our own place, our own house, and just have a lot of really amazing memories of growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Any that stand out to you?
Oh my gosh.
When you think back to growing up, what's like your happy time? What's the time that just brings you the most joy?
I want to say Christmas, but it was really Halloween.
How come?
It's my favorite. It's my favorite holiday. And we got to make believe. We got to pretend, and we got to be creative, and there was no judgments. It was just, okay, you want to dress up like that and go to school.
Yeah.
It was just an amazing time for me. But my mom was really creative, so she would often, I would tell her what I wanted to be, and she would make it happen. So
I was gonna ask, did your mom make your costumes? Because mine totally did.
Yeah.
Okay.
They were all homemade costumes, and I won all the time. So
oh, perfect. What costume stands out to you the most?
I was the Joker in the late 80s.
Okay.
And, I had the green hair, my mom's purple suit on, that big smile on my face. Yeah, it was, my friends didn't even recognize me when I went to the community hall. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
What do you do for work today?
I am the proud owner of Indigenous Empowerment Coaching. So I've been developing that for a few years, and that's what I do.
What kind of organizations do you help with Indigenous Empowerment Coaching?
I always joke. I jokingly say this to my clients all the time, but I put the fun in dysfunctional organizations.
That's good, though.
Yeah. So there's, the organizations that I coach are often, it's like sometimes it's going to be a transition house, and they support the community in a lot of different ways, or it could be a band operated school, or the latest organization that I just completed working with is Two Spirits of Motion Society. Mm-hmm. So they're a national Two-Spirit organization.
So when you get a new client or anything like that, like, do you do one-on-one coaching, group coaching? What does it look like? So if I had my own organization of Jimbo and I back here, and we were like, we need Dallas to come help us out. Yes. What would it look like?
No organization is too small.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What would it look like? Do you just do one-on-ones, and what's the process look like?
I usually suggest that organizations they do team coaching, so to build in the team building aspect inside of coaching. So I do offer executive coaching for one-on-one with directors or managers, and that's usually at a more of a discounted rate, especially if they purchase any of the containers that I bought or that I offer.
Totally. What is the mission behind Indigenous Empowerment Coaching?
To empower the heck out of Indigenous organizations so that we could to really come at it from a different, to really empower proactivity in the organizations, because a lot of times organizations, there's no business problem. There's only personal problems that make their way into businesses through its people.
Okay.
So,
interesting. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Can you dive into that a little bit?
A little bit, sure. Yeah. So I was my first customer. I was very codependent because of some of the traumatic stuff that I've experienced as an Indigenous guy when I was growing up, and but people pleasing, absenteeism from work, presenteeism, so being at work but not really being doing much of anything. So there's a lot of these things I've discovered over the years are things that my clients they kind of need support with.
Interesting. So then you talk about presenteeism, that codependency. Your website mentions that you help managers combat 9-to-5 codependency. Can you tell me a little bit more about 9-to-5 codependency?
Yeah, so just like I guess I implied was that people are often, they can be codependent in their personal life, and then they just bring it into the workplace. So then it manifests itself in kind of organizations that need a little bit more support. maybe there's not enough organization within the company, or they sometimes some of the companies that I've helped a client to really help. She has a restaurant, and she was one of my first clients, and she offered work to people that haven't really had a lot of work experience. They were at-home moms and stuff, and they came into work, and they didn't have some of the skills that they needed.
Yeah.
So I coached them. That particular company, I coached them one-on-one for all of their staff for several months.
Yeah.
It was a deep dive right away, and then they invited me in to go in and do some of the work, and team building. So I went into the community and I offered some team support.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I really want to make sure I understand this.
Yeah.
But that 9-to-5 codependency, what that looks like is that people are bringing in their own trauma, their own experiences into work, and they're just kind of not maybe effectively managing the relationships with their other teammates and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's how kind of, like, I don't know another word, but like kind of anarchy starts at work, or in
a little bit. And so the a lot of the things that the clients that I've been working with, they have the lateral violence in the workplace. So gossiping, backbiting, rumor mongering, and different things like that. They come in, and it's kind of low-key toxic. I don't want to put too many labels on Indigenous people. I think that the media does enough of that.
Yeah, totally.
But to really transform something, we have to really start to understand what it is. So I think that's a good starting point, but it's not the one thing that we, am I making it clear?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
Okay.
It's a multifaceted problem, and that's why coaching kind of takes that I feel like coaching provides that context that's needed to get that growth. Does that make sense? You know what I mean?
Exactly. It's a container.
Exactly.
For sure. And
cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. So chronologically, what was your career like? How did you develop into this coach that's impacting so many great organizations?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. What did I
And give them the full story. We love it. We love
the full story.
Yeah.
I was fresh off the res in 1993, and I finished high school on Saturday, and I came to Vancouver on Monday. So I was like, I'm out of here, and it was I failed at college. I tried to do this hospitality management course. It was only 9 months, and I dropped out of college, and I started just messing around and not really doing much of anything. And then I went back to the reserve, and I had this experience where I met a family that was from New Zealand, so a Maori family, and they invited me to go live with them for a year. So I went down to New Zealand when I was like 23 years old, and I was there for 9 months. And prior to that, I was like working as a bartender, a waiter, and different things like that, not really doing much of anything. And then I became this inspirational speaker at 23. So I was I traveled all over the North and South Island in New Zealand. I went to the Kingdom of Tonga, which is in Polynesia, not Africa. Most people ask me what part of Africa is that in. Australia, I went to Newcastle and New South Wales and Sydney, and I went to all these places. But then I ended up going to like Africa 3 times. I went to Europe, all over North America.
Oh, wow.
And like 30 countries, I guess, in about 10 years. And I was an inspirational speaker at 23.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what would people invite you to speak about in particular?
At 23, I was like, I have no idea. So the first time I spoke was in Auckland. It was at a Polynesian gathering. And, well, it was north of Auckland, so I'm not sure the name of the town, but there was like 4,000 people there from all over Polynesia. And they were... The MC was saying, we have somebody special all the way from Canada. So I'm like, yay, awesome. And then, yeah, he's from British Columbia. And I was like, okay, this is a coincidence, right?
Yeah.
And then he said, his name is Dallas. Come on up on stage. And that was the first time I ever spoke in public.
Yeah.
And I was like, got up there. I couldn't put two sentences together. I was shaking like a leaf. I was 23 years old, and I'm like, what am I supposed to talk about?
Yeah, totally.
And I ended up, the guy said, oh, this is really this is unfair of us to like, we didn't even warn him that we were going to invite him up. So he said, I have some questions for you, and let's just do this interview style. So it was a lot like this, actually.
Perfect.
And he said, just look at me and answer just as if you're just talking to me. They're going to listen in. So that was my first speaking engagement.
Wow.
Yeah.
Shout out to that guy. Eh?
Yeah.
Bringing in the interview skills.
Yeah.
You know what's funny is that where you and I met originally was at a Indigenous health gathering, right? And there were people from across. There's a ton of Maori people, Indigenous people from Australia and stuff like that. And it was so beautiful to see us all just fit in. Would you say that when you were traveling, Australia, New Zealand, that you kind of felt like you had a little bit of a community as well too while you were traveling?
Oh, absolutely. Oh my gosh. I spoke in youth prisons. I spoke in maraes. I went to Aborigine. Like in I guess it was in Australia. I went to a youth prison and I spoke there. And I was like, what am I supposed to say? And I just started talking about being Indigenous and the plight of Indigenous folks in Canada. And people just, they resonated. They believed it. They were like, wow, we had no idea. So they had this idea about this romantic view about, the cowboys and the Indians and all of that. And I was there to say, well, yeah, there was that, but there was also this other thing called colonization, which you all are familiar with. And
yeah, totally.
Yeah. So, but I spent a weekend on a marae in New Zealand, south of Auckland. And so a marae is a traditional longhouse village in the Maori culture. And and there was 100 of us or something like that staying in this marae. And this elderly Maori lady said, "Where are you from?" And she pointed at me, the guy in the corner with the red shirt on. "Where are you from?" And I said, "I'm from Canada." And she said, "How about your people? Where are they from?" And I said, "I'm a Native American from Canada." And she was like, "Oh my gosh, that's why you seemed like there was something really special about you. And that's why I just called you out." So it was totally different than my experience growing up.
Totally. That's so freaking cool.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so jealous. I want to go down so bad. Okay, so you're traveling all these countries across, so from 23, early 20s, you said you did that for 10 years, all those countries in that 10 years. When do you come back to Canada and what do you do then?
I came back quite often, and back then they had these programs where I could just, I would work as a bartender or do like the whatever kind of jobs. And but I would get my taxes back because I was going to do all this work in these countries. So the trips were paid for. I would do 2 or 3 a year sometimes, and it would be for, I think the longest I stayed somewhere was in New Zealand, and that was for 9 months.
Has traveling always been kind of a passion for you?
Yeah. I guess, oh my gosh, I'm really dating myself, but there was a show called Fraggle Rock when I was growing up. And it was this Muppet show, right?
Yeah.
And this guy was, my character that I absolutely loved was Uncle Traveling Matt. He was my hero when I was growing up. I can't believe I just shared that. But how are you doing this?
So you're traveling Matt.
Yes, Uncle Traveling Dal. But the most magical moment I had was when I left New Zealand. There was about 20 or 25 Polynesian folks that came to see me off at Auckland Airport, and I was hugging them and saying goodbye. And I went to go to the gates, and then all of it, like just about at the gates, they broke off out into a haka. And I was like, oh my gosh, who is this? Like, what's happening? Because they were going at it really hard. I look back and it was my friends.
Oh, that's amazing.
They were saying, be bold, be strong, step into your power. But it was all in the Maori language. And I was bawling my eyes out.
I was going to say, did you cry?
Bawling my eyes out. Oh my gosh, I couldn't do it. So I was like, I love you guys. And I left mid haka. But that was probably the highlight of my time down there.
Oh my goodness. So you're traveling around working all these jobs. When does your next move come about for you? Your next career move?
Yeah, so I figured I don't know why I actually thought I wanted to please my dad a little bit, and I was like, he wanted me to have an education, like a white man's education.
Yeah.
Right? So I went and got a BA and I went and got an MBA, and I was a mature student, and I graduated with a 3.8 GPA when I finished my MBA, and I did the MBA because I wanted to have my own business, and I always wanted to have one since I was like, I think I was about 21 or 22. I didn't take any actions on it until I was 45.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. But it's working out today, so that's
great.
Okay. And then, so you start working for a company after that?
Yeah. So I worked in a pharmacy for 13 years. I absolutely hated every minute of it. I'm not a pharmacist. I was a tech.
Yeah.
But it enabled me to be able to go back to school. And it was quite flexible. So I was able to work my way through school. And then, I got a job at the FNHA, and it was after a weekend seminar actually. And they said, at the end of the interview, they said, is there anything that you want to say or ask at this time? And I said, yeah, I'm the man for this job, and it would be a mistake for you not to hire me. And I reached out, I dropped a fake mic, and I left the interview.
Yes.
So before that, though, because I hated the work that I was doing, I was eating lunch alone in my car for like 5 years. I was like, what is this, right? This is not what I signed up for. And then I ended up getting this job. I got a call back an hour later from the interviewer, and he said, that was quite the dramatic exit. I said, yeah. And I said, did I leave an impression? And he goes, yeah. And I said, are you giving me the job? And he goes, I'm not even allowed to do this, but yes, I'm offering you the job.
Yeah.
So I tripled my salary, and I went on to effect change for 140,000 Indigenous people in BC for the next 3 years.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I used to work for FNHA too, everybody.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So what were you doing for FNHA at that moment?
I was working in change management. So that's what I got. I was a quasi expert in change management from my MBA.
Okay, let's dive into that for a second. What do you think is the common barrier for organizations to change? You know?
Oh, yeah, I have a friend who also has an MBA. He's Indigenous, and he's also a coach. So he's a psych nurse, and he said we have to stop pathologizing ourselves. I was like, oh yeah, I think we do. And then I went and Googled later, like, what the heck does that mean, right? Because I'm not a counselor, right? But it's when people have been saying about us that that we're living on the fringes of society, this happened to us, therefore we're like this.
Yes.
And, and really just normalizing all of the things that we do, right? The codependency in the workplace, right? And all of that kind of stuff. And we're kind of just giving, like, I fully believe that we need to take responsibility, right? But I also know that they've been saying this about us with the media, and they've been saying it, like, portraying, like, that's the narrative that they're spinning, and we started to believe it. So,
I'm with you there.
Yeah.
I'm totally with you there.
So stop that.
Yeah.
Like,
So stop that for sure.
And the reason I know this is I did weekend seminars with I did one with my cousin, and then on Sunday night where I was like, what do you think? And he said, I thought we were the ones that were messed up, but these guys are messed up.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
And it was like Caucasian and Asian and Middle Eastern and like all these different people. And I was like, yeah, my life wasn't that bad actually.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So it was pretty interesting that starting to realize, and I didn't get that until I got coaching. Mm-hmm. My counselors, and I love my counselor and all of that, but they're always looking for something that they can heal or and I'm like, no, just start taking actions towards what you want to do.
Oh, can we need a banner that says that in this room. I think. Okay, that's awesome. And then let's dive into that. So how has coaching impacted your life both personally and professionally?
Oh my gosh. When I was younger, I had more of it, but just taking actions and not really caring what people thought. Like people were like, wow, you live in all of these countries, you visited all these countries and you're doing all of this stuff. But it wasn't until I started trying to win my parents' approval. That was when things kind of went south for me. And now I'm just like, I told my dad, I told my dad I'm quitting my job. I was a level 4 project manager. I was managing 50 health programs in northern BC when I left the authority. And then I was like, I'm leaving that so I can start a business. And he was like, great, that's awesome. Mm. And I was like, really? I was kind of shocked. So I started 2 businesses. And one was a change management consulting company, and the other one was a dog grooming company. And I hired a dog groomer to manage the dog grooming company. And really long story short, I made 5 phone calls in one day, and I got 2 phone calls back for both companies and I made $250,000 in sales in one day. I was like, that's why I left. Like, this is actually what I signed up for.
Yeah, totally.
And then the next day, I left that job in October 2019. And then I went to Mexico for 2 weeks on holidays, and I came back and I started working on my businesses. And then it was a few months later and the next year, so 2020. And so what happened was I guess our prime minister decided it was in everybody's best interest to shut the country down because of COVID. Mm-hmm. So I never saw the $250,000.
Dang it. But let me guess. You knew that it was possible now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I wish I could tell you that. I was just like, and I firmly believe life happens for you.
Yeah.
It looks like it's happening to you, but it really happens for you. And I coach people on that all the time. But then they're like, when they ask me about that and they question that, I share that story with them and they're like, oh, okay, this guy's not messing around.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, totally.
So I called a coach and he said, I'm sorry that happened, bro, but what are you going to do tomorrow? I hung up on him. I was so upset. I was so mad. I gave him some choice words and I hung up.
Interesting.
And then I called another coach and she said, oh, Dallas, I'm so sorry that happened. How do you feel? I told her how I felt for a few minutes. And then she said, so if money wasn't an object, what would you do tomorrow? And I said, oh, that's easy. I would be a coach. So she said, then go do that, bro. So I put myself into a RMT, so Robbins Madonna's training, and I became a strategic intervention coach in 3 months, I think. So that's how I started.
And then Indigenous Empowerment Coaching comes out of that.
Yes.
Boom.
Yeah.
And we come full circle.
I was a volunteer coach with a different organization for 3 or 4 years. And so that's how I knew I could become a coach.
Interesting. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go back to, you know, when you're talking about colonial systems and you had that realization that, oh my gosh, these people are messed up too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In your opinion, what mistake does colonial work systems make, and how do we address that?
Neo-Colonialism.
Mm-hmm.
So they kind of let themselves off the hook because they say it's not, they didn't do this to us. It was their ancestors.
Right.
But they still live in the system that their ancestors built for them.
Right.
So that's their mistake. And
Interesting.
the second one is they feel sorry or guilty for something. Like that's the other extreme.
Yeah.
Like I didn't do that to you, or they feel like I'm so sorry for and they come groveling and
Yeah.
I'm like, no, that doesn't help anything, because I think that the scales are rebalanced again somehow, because we're, are you like fighting for our rights, and do that, like absolutely do that. And then, but they end up saying I'm sorry.
Mm.
They feel guilty. So then those scales are balanced, but nothing changes.
Mm. Totally. It's weird that you bring that up, because I'm developing a training at work right now. It's called Working with Indigenous Peoples. And pretty much what this whole course designed, so I conducted a bunch of interviews with non-Indigenous colleagues to find out what they think. And I said, one of the very first questions was, what comes to your mind when I say the word Indigenous? And they all go back to like, oh, residential school, blah, blah, blah. Like they bring in that trauma, like a whole high person that was like back in the day, highly traumatized from whatever. And I was like, okay, so like the entire course is going to be about demonstrating the differences in our worldview compared to a non-Indigenous worldview, and then blending those two together to be like, okay, well, if you're going to be working and hiring with a person and that's what you're thinking about them, then you're already not going to let them contribute in their best way that they possibly can. Yeah. Because you're already thinking of them differently. Yeah. So like that's pretty much what the entire course is designed to break. So I find that very, very interesting.
Great.
Yes.
Yeah. Good for you. What
were you gonna say?
How old are you?
I'm 24.
Oh wow. Okay. You're doing great. Awesome.
I'm really trying my best. I can tell you that for sure. Okay, if you had to give a leader a single piece of advice, what would it be?
Take actions.
Go on. It's simple, but go on. Take action, period.
Yeah, that's all I do is I align with so it's the AAA. That's what I've been doing lately is I align with what matters for me, and the way that I do that is I meditate in the morning for an hour. I give myself a gift every morning. Before I try to not get on my Facebook and get those dopamine hits and and so with social media and all of that, and I really try to do things that will produce better chemicals in my body. So I often do a gratitude meditation. I do success meditations, and all of these different things that I want more of in my life, and I make that my focal point in the start of my day. So dropping in and aligning with those values that I have within me.
Totally.
It takes practice to do it. In an hour, I think when I first started, it was like a minute or 5 minutes.
I wouldn't even be able to meditate for 2 minutes maximum. 100%.
Yeah. So, and then it just becomes something that is really, really beneficial. I'm like, if I could just go live in the mountain and do that all day, that's what I would do.
Totally. Same boat.
So it's awesome. And then take action based on that alignment. So then you're not coming from a place of I'm not coming from a place of deficit. I'm coming from a place of empowerment, and I empowered the heck out of myself that morning with a cup of coffee.
I'm getting amped up just hearing you talk about this.
Yeah. And then the last step is to allow. So I have an anxiety disorder. It no longer has me. I have post-traumatic stress disorder. It no longer has me. But because I had those things, I had to, like, my therapist would actually enable me and make excuses for me for my behavior. Mm-hmm. And then we would kind of chip away at it. But it seems to me like I'm not like, my mom's a counselor, so I'm not knocking counselors. Go see your counselor. But they're also in a business, mm-hmm. right? So my business as a coach is to work myself out of a job.
Right.
Empower them so that they can do this themselves. And once in a while, if they need a little shot in the arm or something, they can call me.
Right. Awesome.
So that's different.
That's different.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's review that. So take action now.
Align.
Action.
And allow.
Interesting. I feel like that is just like, someone should be paying for this podcast right now. Yeah. That sounds like that's a bunch of value right there.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, when we get to my session, I'm gonna ask you a question, because I'll just ask you it now, whatever.
Oh, sure, yeah.
But so the version of this that I'm practicing right now is I wake up in the morning, I go to the gym right away. Mm-hmm. I actually pray first thing in the morning. I go to the gym right away. I come back home. I journal, which I think is like my version of alignment. Yep. I would say. I do want to get into the breathwork side of things, which I'll ask you a little bit more later. Yeah. And then from that, I spend the next 20 minutes of my day sharpening, which means I'll be reading a book about something, or usually I'm reading about something in preparation for a podcast, and then work kind of starts right away or something like that. But that's kind of like what I'm doing. Am I on the right path there to like a
no, I shared what I do, but you want to do what makes sense for you. I also include dancing in I leave the house, before I leave the house every day, I dance. So
do you have a go-to song, album, anything like that?
No, it's just I do these Zumba classes from YouTube.
Oh, perfect. That's awesome.
And I also have a gym. I go to the gym and do the Zumba.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What are your top one, whatever, career lessons for Indigenous peoples that are working in these colonial systems right now?
Oh, gosh, I think I read that and I forgot. Let me see. So start coming to your managers, well, first of all, you want to see if you align with the goals of that organization. And if you don't, quit and go do something that you align with.
That's easier said than done, I feel like sometimes, you know what I mean? But yeah, for sure. That's number one.
Yeah. And that's actually what I do in my coaching as well. So that's...
you turn over a bunch of people in your coaching.
Out of 820 people that I've coached, one person has quit.
Okay. That's good.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So you asked... What was the question?
Top two, 3 lessons for Indigenous professionals today.
And then start finding it within yourself to, like, instead of looking for outside approval, to start looking within and appreciating the work that you're doing.
Interesting.
That needs to come from you. It shouldn't be coming from anywhere else. It's a bonus if it comes from other people.
Yeah.
But that shouldn't be the end goal.
Awesome. Yeah, I feel like, do you feel like we have more control over our sense of feeling belonging than we kind of give ourselves credit for?
I think so. I think I had a clarity session with one group, and I'm not going to share too much details about them at all, because I ended, like, this was the one clarity call that I said no to.
Yeah.
Because one of the questions that I ask in a clarity session is, what do you want more of? And there was some folks in there that were looking at me sideways, and they were Indigenous, and they were saying Indigenous people don't know what they want more of. And I was like, I can't, like, this clarity session is over. I can't help you if that's what you believe.
Yeah, totally.
So we ended the call, and I invited them to reconsider how they view Indigenous people.
Wow. Awesome. Oh, I just got the shivers there a little bit when you said that. But definitely, no, I fully agree. Like, I have brothers who might not know what they even want more of for themselves. You know what I mean? And I kind of feel like, even when I was thinking about starting this podcast and doing all this stuff, I kind of feel like for me personally, I was more like, it came from like a sense of like, I feel like people deserve to have a place to share. Like, our people deserve to have a place to share. And then on top of that, I kind of feel like I was just so dedicated to the mission that it pulled me forward. But I've gotten so much else from just taking action on this podcast. Like, we're probably in like the 4th iteration of this studio right now. You know what I mean?
I love it.
I'm glad. Or do you like it?
No, I love it.
Question.
Yeah, no, I love it.
Anyways.
But do you love it?
I love it.
Yeah, good.
Oh, I totally love it. I mean, it's only going to get better and stuff. We're waiting on some furniture and stuff like that. Anyway, the whole point of me talking about this was that, you know, the journey, I feel like there's so much more fun in the journey than there is in the destination sometimes. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And then,
if you're not having fun, don't do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you having fun?
I'm having fun.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I'm a developing Indigenous leader. How do I find a coach? What's my steps? My step by step.
Oh my gosh. I don't know. I want to say something really cheesy, like, when the student is ready, the teacher will arrive, right? So
yeah.
Quite often, many people, because I usually do clarity sessions with directors, they or EDs or executives, they're my clients. They're the ones that pay for me to come in and do the work. So quite often the staff, they're just kind of like voluntold to come, but I do a clarity session with them. So that they can make a choice to come, right? So if you are looking for a coach, then go talk to your director.
Interesting.
And then give them my information so I can have a clarity call with them.
Something I'm always a little bit wary about, because we bring in outside consultants into our job and stuff like that all the time. And I don't know, I like, sometimes I can get a little bit wary of consultants. I'm like, is this person really possessing the experience that we need? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. What are kind of the qualities I should be looking for when I'm seeking a coach? You know, how do I know if I found the right coach for me?
If they're listening to you.
Interesting.
Yeah, and if they're talking about if they're interested in what your goals are, and then if they can tell you that they can help you or not, if they can't, and they, you know, I've told some folks, like this one client was depressed for 20 years because of all the death that happened in her life, and that's what she wanted coaching on. And I said, I'm not a therapist.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to go do some counseling first.
Yeah, totally.
And she said, well, okay, can I make a different goal? And I said, yeah, absolutely. So she did.
Yeah.
So it's that being able to, like, being right sized, I guess. So I don't ever want to promise anything like that as a coach.
Yeah.
And but being able to say no when people ask me to do something that is, it's not within my wheelhouse.
Mm-hmm. It's funny. It almost seems like a coach, like you can evaluate a coach by how clear they are with you.
Yeah.
Because if I came to you and you said, you know, I don't really think you're ready for whatever this is, I would instantly gain some trust. I feel like, you know what I mean? Because now I feel safe as who I am, you know?
It was a group clarity session, and they all signed up because they said, oh, I can trust this guy.
Yeah, totally.
And then I kind of sold what I could do.
Yeah.
But I over delivered once they were in a container.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Is that a key to business right there?
Yeah, sure.
Awesome.
To repeat business, because I built this with no paid advertisement.
Mm-hmm.
I started out by calling 200 of my ideal clients, which I thought at that time were health and wellness directors. So all of the health and wellness directors in BC, and one person said yes.
Mm-hmm. And then does it just spiral out from there?
They started talking, and other people started finding out about it, and it became word of mouth marketing after that.
Interesting. I read this quote a couple of days ago. We can jump into this maybe if we do a clarity session with me, but even when I'm booking guests for this podcast, I always feel like, I don't know, maybe I don't, like I'm unworthy of having someone of that stature on, even like yourself, to come and sit in the seat and share with me. But then I've been really working on every single day, just kind of waking up and being like, okay, you know what? It doesn't hurt to ask. You know what I mean? Just get out there and start going for it.
Yeah.
And then only this week have we finally found a lot of success in booking really amazing guests to come on, like yourself.
Oh,
they come in and take a seat.
Thank you.
So, what would you like Indigenous leaders of all generations to know? This might be a little bit of a repeating question, but what would you like us all to start actioning today?
Yeah, I think like to really stop that pathologizing ourselves, and then really doing like being who your ancestors prayed for, like going out and I feel like I've been really guided in the work that I do. I didn't one day, like most kids want to be a fireman when they grow up, right?
Yeah.
They're a police officer, but I didn't. I actually, if I'm being honest, I had no idea what I wanted to do because I was people pleasing so much. And the moment I stopped doing that and I started doing whatever the heck I wanted, that's when my dad called me and he said, I am so proud of you. I'm so proud to be your dad.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing this work.
Absolutely.
I was like, Dad, I'm actually going to see a client soon, and you got me bawling my eyes out.
Hi, my relatives. Do you know how to start a podcast? Because at the beginning of starting Our Storytellers, I did not. One of the things I've learned is how expensive podcasting can be. So please support us through our Patreon page. If you like what we're doing here, anything helps. You'll get early access to episodes, some exclusive content as well. Again, please support our Patreon page if you can. Thank you so much, Keenan Askaman. Back to our podcast episode. Okay, yeah, no, tell me about your dad and how he influenced you to start and jump into coaching.
So I did this weekend seminar, and it made such a profound impact on me, the one that I talked to you about earlier. And then I became a leader in that organization, and then I developed myself in coaching, and then I started making this weekend seminar available for my parents and other people. And my dad was on this healing journey for 30 years. And so this is the pathologizing piece, right? So he went to circles, and all of these things were great, and nothing, and he continues to do that work. And then the difference that I started to see in him was when he said yes to doing this weekend seminar. And oh my gosh, I'm getting emotional just building up to it. But it's amazing. He stood up in front of 200 or 300 people, and he, my dad gave me life. He doesn't owe me anything. And my mom too, and she did this as well. But I'm kind of telling my dad's story right now. And he stood up and he said, I put the residential school behind me. My dad died when he said my dad died when I was 9 years old, and my mom had no choice but to send us all to residential school. I came back angry, and I've been trying to fix myself all these years. And I couldn't tell you when I had you. I couldn't tell you I loved you. I couldn't tell you, hug you or hold you. And it was because I didn't want to hurt you the way they hurt me in residential school. It was amazing moment. And in that moment, all of my whole life just made sense. So I made it mean that all of those things that he didn't do for me was because he didn't love me. Mm-hmm. I was so glad that I was wrong.
Totally. Okay, hold on. I'm just going to try not to cry, but we're going to keep going. Okay. That's a beautiful story. Thank you so much for sharing that. And is that what the power of coaching and being in the now can do?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And he was able to say, and I had 60 people from Bella Coola do the Landmark Forum, and they all had different results. So we've been talking about the colonization and all of this stuff, and and it's great, and that we especially that more people are having that conversation now. And it's also even more powerful when we get to put that behind us.
Mm-hmm.
So the full human experiences teachings from Bella Coola, it's called the Stimstaliwa. And what we do is we watch a movie of our lives before we come to Earth, so we can have our full human experiences. Mm. We know exactly what's going to happen to us, and we choose to come here anyway, so we can develop ourselves. That's what coaching is.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I had an elder sit down with me, and she told me that everything that I do is I'm having people do the things that she teaches them to do, but I'm actually taking them through those things that they resist. So the trauma, the hurt, the suffering, the traumatic upbringing and the toxicity and the with relationships and all of that stuff, that's what we signed up for. We forget that.
Yeah.
And so there's nothing that can, there's no apology needed for that.
Yeah.
From anyone.
Totally.
So yeah.
Interesting. Wow. So, I mean, I guess that kind of leads into what does culture mean to you? Because, your execution of coaching is really just an execution of an Indigenous worldview and Indigenous principles, and in making our ancestors proud and all that.
I had no idea that that's what I was doing until the elder sat me down and told me.
Yeah.
So I was really guided.
Exactly.
It was, and being Two-Spirit as well, it kind of helps me to find my role in that area within my community. And so that happened, but I also coached another national organization. And one of I was talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and I described the blueprint container, the next level relationships, the 7 mindsets of success, and ending lateral violence. Those are the 4 containers that I offer. And this one young lady that was in university said, "Yeah, we've been learning about this, and what you're talking about is the Blackfoot teachings on this subject." Which the first container helps people to manage themselves in a good way, then to consider other people, and then to align with organizational goals, and then just behave. If you can behave in a good way, just do that.
Yeah, totally.
So I've been accidentally making my coaching Indigenous.
Hi, my relatives. Thank you so much for watching and listening. If you have any feedback, please comment on YouTube or submit feedback through Spotify. All of your feedback helps us make this production so much better. So thank you so much. And back to your podcast. What I wanted to say about all that is that building off into, you didn't even know that what you were doing is connected to culture at the same time. Have you explored, I know that you leverage a lot of breath work in your coaching as well too.
Yes.
Have you made the connection between our Indigenous breathwork teachings and that, or is it just starting to come about?
Not yet. Yeah. And I'm actually going to be taking it down from my website, and then just making it a back end offer. So focusing the marketing piece is on those 4 containers, and then the Breath Warriors is something that I would offer after they've been in coaching already.
Interesting.
So
how did you find the tool of breath work, and how did that come about?
Oh my gosh. I had a couple of car accidents, and I'm totally fine. But so I was doing all of these stretches and exercises, and then YouTube started to make like suggesting other things that I could do. And I started doing yoga, and they incorporated breathing into the yoga. So I was like, oh, that, like breathing in for 5 seconds and breathing out for 5 seconds, like that is actually the optimal breath. And they were teaching this in these yoga classes. So I started inserting it into my coaching with those other containers that I was talking about. And there's the spirit breath, which it's you, as long as you exhale for the twice as long as the inhale, then you're actually calming yourself down.
Totally.
And so we breathe way too much, and it's actually putting us into anxiety and fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So those people-pleasing things that I was experiencing was because I was breathing too much.
Interesting. Isn't that so? I find that's so interesting. I know that I recommended a book to you, but in that book, it talks a lot about how fast we breathe and how we breathe so fast in comparison.
The moment that we're born, we start breathing 16 times a minute, and optimal breath is 6 times a minute.
Wow.
A turtle breathes, certain kinds of turtles breathe like 3 times a minute, and they live to be 150 years old.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a causation, but there's definitely a correlation there.
Totally. Okay, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the strategy of just breathing out for double that you breathe in for, and that's a good way to calm yourself. Are there any other super applicable strategies that we can just take in and go with right now?
Do you ever get in your head?
Oh yeah. Do I ever live in there?
So the box breath is one that I use for that, because I think it's definitely something that I want less of that. So the box breath is breathing into like the shape of a box. So inhale for the exact amount of time.
Yeah.
As a hold, and then the exhale, and then another hold.
Nice.
So 4, 4, 4, and 4.
Yeah. I think the military use that actually for their combat, like for when they're in combat as well too.
Yes. Yeah. And the only time you can really be present is when you're focusing on your breath.
Yeah, totally.
So I was incorporating these in my containers, and then I started asking my clients, so what's the best part of the coaching? And they said, the breath work. Like I would wake up at 3 a.m. and I would be like, oh, Dallas, like I would hear your voice, like just breathe in or exhale for twice as long as you inhale, or do box breath. And in 2 minutes, I'm back asleep.
I just had a visual of you becoming like the person on the shoulder.
Little devil.
Yeah, exactly.
The little devil, breathing devil. Yeah. So those are practical tools, but the transformational breath work is the thing. Like we talk about in some teachings about the 7 generations. Yeah. Right. So that's how much it impacts. But there's actually a cherry blossom study that shows that it goes up to 14 generations. Wow. So be a good ancestor now is what Polly from Twosome says.
Okay.
What does that mean? Start taking, like, if you know better, do better. Yeah. What are you leaving for the next generation?
Okay, that's awesome. So just to wrap this up here. Yeah. What is a clarity session? And when you usually give them to directors, but what is that?
I ask 3 questions. I usually do my I just usually have folks, I usually share my ancestry. Yeah. And then I tell people a little bit about myself, invite them to share their ancestry if they want to. So I ask 3 questions. What do you want more of? What do you want less of? And what are the barriers that are preventing you from having what you want more of?
Okay, let's do it on me right now. Okay. I'm excited.
All right.
Okay. Ask me the first question. I'm ready.
All right. What do you want more of?
I want more control over my own time. Okay. Because I love to do the things that I love to do. Like, I love working out. If I could work out twice a day, I would. And I love time with my family, and I love doing the things that I want to do. I also love working too. And what I also want more of is I want more on a grander scale. I want more Indigenous peoples in my age group to step up and start taking action, like tangibly, whether that means starting businesses or doing whatever it needs to do, whatever it needs to be, and just to be brave and get out there and do what you want. Be the change that you want to see in the world. That's what I want to do.
Oh, absolutely.
I want to inspire others to do that. That's why I started this.
Great. That's what you really want, is to inspire others.
Want.
Yeah. Amazing. All right. So what do you want less of?
What do I want less of? Oh, this is the hardest question because I'm honestly a pretty grateful person, Dallas. Like I really work on my gratitude a lot. So I'm kind of great. What I want less of is I want myself to be less stressed in the things that I do.
Okay.
So like I want to change it to what I want less of into what I want more of is like I would want more. I want myself to become more level-headed and the same person that I'm dealing with everything. Because you can ask Jimbo. Jimbo and I get in fights all the time and stuff like that. Because sometimes I'm high anxiety. I'm out there. I'm like really expressive. Sometimes I keep it calm. Like I can even like Jimbo and I can go back and forth. You know what I mean? I want to be that same level-headed leader at all times.
Oh,
yeah. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yep. So would that mean that you want less of that?
I want less
drama?
Yes. I want to be less dramatic.
Okay.
Yeah. Exactly.
Great. So you want to inspire more and you want to be dramatic less.
Yes.
Okay.
Great. When I picture myself becoming the leader that I want to be, I'm just that person that is like that really strong listener and is always in problem solving mode, and I'm just that glue that holds that team together. Don't worry about that. No, it's fine. Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah. So and then what are the barriers? So you want to inspire, you want to have more time, right, to do the things that you love. So what are three, like it's an there's 3 or 5 things that are possibly barriers. It could be less. What are some of the things that are your barriers that are preventing you from having more of what you want?
My barriers from having more of what I want. Barriers. I think I struggle with the procrastination a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a barrier from having more of what I want, because if I just worked on the podcast maybe a little bit harder, even if it's just 1 more hour a week, I think it could do a lot over time.
Okay.
Not that I don't work on it a lot, I do. But there are times where I just feel like I would just want to relax and sit down, and like when I probably shouldn't be, or I don't even need to be at that moment in time because my energy is good still.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And then I just procrastinate on it. And then that's probably my biggest barrier.
Okay.
And then I guess another barrier to being able to inspire change and bring this podcast where I want it to be is probably just resource-wise, like monetarily. You know what I mean? And how I'm planning on overcoming that is that we have a big list of grants that we're going to write to clearly upgrade the equipment in this thing. You know what I mean?
Okay. Sounds good.
And I think that's probably it for now.
Yeah, I love it that you picked like 2 things, because most people are like, oh my gosh, where do I start?
Oh, yeah.
And so that becomes your pathway. And those things that you want more of, I definitely can support you in. And it's within my wheelhouse to be able to help you. So I would then offer you to start with the blueprint container so you can manage yourself better, which will help you to manage your time better.
Okay.
So that's which is something that so would you like to sign up for
Yes.
Okay. That wasn't a real pitch, but I just thought that's how it would look. But I typically don't offer you a container unless I know I can help you.
Really?
Yeah.
So I'm lucky.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Awesome. Okay, we're good for now. Is there anything else?
No, that's it.
I think that's a good sample. I feel like that's a good sample. Who would you like to dedicate this podcast to, if anybody?
I would love to dedicate this to my mom and dad. They're my heroes. They gave me life, and I wouldn't be here without them, literally and figuratively. Lots of love to you, mom and dad.
Yay, awesome. Okay, well, thank you so much for coming on the pod, and I hope you enjoyed yourself. I feel like I just made $1 million by having you on here, so I'm pretty pumped up. So, is there anything else you want to say before?
Oh, just keep up the good work. I love what you're doing here.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Yes, thank you. Hi, my relatives. Thank you so much for watching today's episode, and big shout out to Dallas for being on today's episode and offering to share some stories and some teachings with us. If you're watching on YouTube, please like, subscribe, comment. Same thing goes for Spotify as well too. Leave some feedback or follow the podcast as well too. Any support helps. If you really enjoyed the podcast, please share this to your social media. It helps us out a ton. And without anything left to say, thank you so much, Keenan Askaman. I'm grateful for you. All my relations, Riel.